What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 65 of the My Parents Office podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Diaz. Today we have a State of the Office segment. I'm doing this one on my own because I'm doing a lot of draft talk. I put Brett on the bench for today. He was fine with it. As many of you know, Brett is very electric when it does come down to the NFL, NBA, any other sports other than UFC segments. So it was a tough decision putting him on the bench today, but it's something that had to be done. But he was cool about it. He'll be back Wednesday for Brett's question before the Phoenix Jack interview. Phoenix was in the office on Sunday. Today's Monday. And then strength coach Bruce is joining us. Tuesday, he's going to be interviewed Tuesday for Friday's episode number 67. And then we've got the week after, Trey Breezy will be on the 69th episode of My Parents Office to talk about his new song with JR Specs. JR, like we know, is a friend of the show. I wrote a couple blogs about their new song coming out, Red Solo Funk. So go check that out on the Substack. Link is in the Twitter bio and in the Instagram bio, both at My Parents Office. If you haven't yet, stop what you're doing. Pause. If you're driving, pull over and take your phone out. Go to the podcast, subscribe, rate it 5 stars, write us a nice little review. That would be pretty cool. And share it with a family member. Tell a friend or two. Maybe they'll find an interview that they liked and become a fan of The Office. So, with that being said, I want to get into just some of my overall the draft. Like I've mentioned many, many times over, and a lot of you are probably getting very sick of me saying this. I love the NFL draft. It's I honestly may love it more than watching the game itself be played because of just the way teams work, the way the management side works, and I love seeing like first round trades and even trades back in the fifth round because a lot of teams are moving around. Like they see a guy they'll like and they think maybe we can pick him up here versus wait for him to try to slip to the sixth round. So I do love the logistics of it and like what a lot of people are thinking. What a lot of GMs are thinking. As a Vikings fan, Rick Spielman is the king of trading back, the absolute king of it. And you know what? It has worked out. I mean, last year was a hell of a draft. You got Gladney, Dantzler for the corners. Sadly, that duo is going to be broken up a little bit because of some off the field issues. But Justin Jefferson, you pick him up. And that's actually going to be one of my favorite moments from the draft that I've really witnessed. And you get to pick up Ezra Cleveland. You pick up Troy Dye. It was an overall pretty solid draft last year, especially for what we needed. He picked up a lot of needs. So I'm curious if there's been a lot of rumors about him wanting to move back into the second round. So I mean, maybe if we could pick up a second rounder and a first rounder next year, go double second rounders for the 14th overall pick. This draft is so deep with offensive linemen. I would love to see maybe us go Radins and Creed Humphrey, Radins and Landon Dickerson, Ben Cleveland and Trey Smith. Just a double combo, or even go edge rusher guard, go Trey Smith and Jason Owe, or Gregory Russo if he drops. That would be awesome. But if we can maybe trade back, pick up 2 second rounders, or pick up a second and a first next year, that would be ideal, especially the 14th pick, depending who wants to move up into that spot. If there's a quarterback like a Mac Jones or a Trey Lance still on the board, then a team like New England or Chicago may want to jump up to that pick. But if like Rashawn Slater or Penei Sewell are there, don't expect the Vikings to trade back because those are 2 guys that I would love to see in the system. I mean, I would do unspeakable things to get Penei Sewell on the Vikings roster just because of the generational talent he is. He is going to be like a Quentin Nelson. I mean, I think Nelson is the league's best offensive lineman. Sewell has that hype around him. I just hope he doesn't burn out and be kind of like a Tony Mandarich situation where he just has so much hype and becomes a bust. But so going into like a couple of my favorite draft day moments of all time, I wrote a blog about this the other day. The anniversary of it from last year's draft, the Vikings laughing at the Eagles. So a little context behind it. Minnesota held the 22nd pick. You knew they were going to either maybe go O-line, corner, or pass catcher. I preferably wanted O-line, but I'm happy they got Jefferson. And Spielman and Mike Zimmer, they're on Zoom. They're talking back and forth. Some of the other front office guys are on there, and they're talking back and forth. They know the Eagles are going pass catcher because the Eagles receivers are piss poor. They were so bad. They've been really bad. And the Eagles have also missed on a lot of receivers. Like the year before this one, they took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside about like 2 picks in front of Andy Isabel. Or no, it was 2 picks in front of Paris Campbell, 5 in front of Andy Isabella, and like 7 in front of DK Metcalf, which is insane. I mean, those are 3 guys that all would have performed better than Arcega-Whiteside. But that's beside the fact. Now the Vikings know they're debating, do we move back and get a corner? They already had, I believe it was the 27th overall pick, also the 29th, and that's when they got Gladney out of TCU. Now they're wondering, like, I mean, who are the Eagles going to take? They end up taking, drumroll please, they take Jalen Reagor out of TCU. And the Vikings burst out laughing. That front office, they just say, they're like, get him on the phone right now. They knew they were going Jefferson. And I think that is ultimately one of the biggest draft steals of maybe the past 10 years if his career really works out like it could and like it should. Because they knew. Like, they immediately knew. And there were 4 other receivers taken ahead of him. Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, and almost Arcega-Whiteside, and Jalen Reagor. So the fact that they knew, like, we have the best guy in the draft, we just not fleeced you guys, but we know what we're doing. That was when I really put a lot of trust into Rick Spielman. I mean, this year is definitely going to be a make or break for him, I think, because if like the team underperforms, it's going to kind of fall on his shoulders, him and Zimmer. So, I mean, but they bolstered that defense. They added Dalvin Tomlinson, Danielle Hunter's coming back. They got Nick Vigil, who could be a good plug-and-play guy. Brought Anthony Barbeck. Let Eric Wilson go, which is a bummer. Let Anthony Harris go was a bummer. You knew that was going to happen, but the Eric Wilson one hurts, especially with the Eagles signing him to only a 1-year, $3 million deal. Offense, you didn't do a ton, but I mean, you're still in good shape because you can make an impact in the draft because this year's draft is so deep. Another moment I really one of the it was hilarious when it happened that night, but also super, super shocking. Was the Laremy Tunsil gas mask incident. And that was in the 2016 draft. Tunsil was projected to be like a top 4 pick. Coming out of Ole Miss, he was a big, physical, quick offensive tackle. Could do it all for you. He would be great in the run game, great in the pass game, and he is. Miami lucks out because a picture of him just ripping a bong through a gas mask gets dropped. It's all over. Mel Kiper's shitting his pants. He's going crazy over it. He's like, oh my God, what does this mean? Mel Kiper's big board is shattered. Schefter's going crazy. Schefter's tweeting it out. All the draft guys are just going nuts. And he ends up going from maybe like a top 4 pick to the 13th overall pick to the Dolphins. The Dolphins land him. He plays good. They end up flipping him for a couple firsts from the Texans. I mean, they fleeced the Texans, but Tunsil has been the one bright side of that offensive line since the trade. But it's just insane that actually happened. The gas mask thing. And it was a couple pictures and I believe a video of him just like ripping it and then taking it off and like laughing. So like you knew it was Laremy Tunsil. There was no debating that it was not. And I'm very curious as to what Tunsil's gut feeling at that time was, because he must have just been like, oh my God, what did I do? Because I mean, so an incident like that, no matter if it's from high school or college or like from a day before the draft, can really hurt your stock. And like that happened with Tunsil, which is crazy. And so he must have been like, I just hope I don't slip to like the second round. I hope something like this doesn't jeopardize my career. And I mean, he hasn't had, I mean, unless I'm wrong, he has not had any off the field issues since this. And I believe the video was from like either his freshman year of college or from high school. So for that to drop is just insane. I don't even know if anybody knows who dropped that video or that picture, but that was just so bizarre to see that happen. It was just odd that act that like it's just there's some things you really think about that you're like, I cannot believe that happened, and that's one of them. And now since I saw a post actually, CBS Sports put it up. I'm looking at it now. They went over some of the top first round misses since 2011. So I'll go over a couple that they posted. Um, the year JJ Watt was drafted 11th overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars, their inner division rivals, took a quarterback, a guy that they thought would be taken to the promised land. That was Blaine Gabbert. He is now he's a pretty swaggy backup. He's got drip now. He's a good backup for Tom Brady down in Tampa. But I mean, them missing on Watt's definitely a big one. Another one, the year Chandler Jones got taken 21st by the New England Patriots. The Titans missed with getting Kendall Wright. I mean, Wright coming out of college wasn't bad. I think that the Titans were really desperate to land a pass catcher, so that's why they went with Wright. I mean, it stinks. He was a really good player at Baylor, bounced around the league a little bit, but it just never really worked out for him. And then Chandler Jones, he's obviously not on the New England roster anymore, but he's been one of the best pass rushers this past decade. And that this actually kind of goes hand in hand with the scenario I said before. Watt and Chandler Jones are now together on the same defensive line in Arizona. The year D-Hop this is a big miss by the Packers. If the Packers had picked up Hopkins at 27, that offense would be deadly, and they wouldn't be in a scenario to like trade away Jordan Love, which there are rumors of this happening, a trade to New England that would get them like the 15th overall pick. Jordan Love would become the new starter, the new hero in Foxborough, which I think would be awful. I'm not sold on Love. I haven't even seen him play. He played low Division I football at Utah State. That's why I'm also not sold on Trey Lance, but Lance at least played wicked competitive D1. He played D1 AA ball, but on a national championship winning team. So that's beside the point. Hopkins in Green Bay would have been insane, but the Packers decided to go with defensive lineman Datone Jones, which haven't really heard much from him lately. So the Hopkins one is definitely a big miss. This next one, I'm very I don't really agree with it a ton. It's another Jaguar, like what CBS is saying, a Jaguar blunder, but I really can't agree with it because it's Dante Fowler going 3rd overall and Amari Cooper going 4th to the Raiders, which if you look at that and look at their careers, you would say that, but Fowler wasn't really a bust. Fowler got hurt. I almost throw Fowler in that same category as like a guy like RG3, where they had potential. When they play, they're not bad. I mean, RG3 took the Redskins to the playoffs. Fowler has been a decent pass rusher when he's healthy. I mean, he's effective on teams. He's able to get after the quarterback, but he tore his ACL in his rookie minicamp. So, I mean, this is a tough one to really get behind and say that it's a like big time blunder. I that's just one I really can't agree with. The next one, this is a big one. The Bengals were sold on John Ross's speed a few years ago. Like sold. I mean, he runs the fastest 40 that's been recorded at the NFL Combine. How can you not be sold on this guy? I mean, but he hurt himself on the 40, so he was a little banged up. He doesn't have the most reliable hands, so they're still going to take him at 9. I mean, at the time you're thinking like, I even was a little skeptical about it. I mean, I'm not going to say like I called it, but it's tough because you saw him get hurt running the 40 and drafting a receiver that's a smaller guy, not a big guy like a Calvin Johnson or a Julio, where they're a big target. Just a speedster has never really worked out. Really drafting them early. And then the next pick is Pat Mahomes, but there's so many teams that missed out on that. Like you could even say the Bears at 2 so the Bears got fleeced in that because the 49ers held the second pick. they were projected to take Solomon Thomas. They were going to take Solomon Thomas, which really didn't work out. And then the Bears say, hey, we'll swap picks with you. And we'll also give you like a second round. We'll give you more picks. They hop all over that. The Bears jump up and take Mitch Trubisky, who had played 1 year as the starter at University of North Carolina. And they're just like, yeah, we're going to take him. He's going to be our guy. Bust. Now he's the backup for the Buffalo Bills. The 49ers still take Solomon Thomas, which, like I said, wasn't a great pick overall, but, it happens. But, I mean, they still come out smelling like roses. Solomon Thomas is still on their roster. Solomon Thomas still plays, but he just isn't a third overall talent now. And then Mahomes goes 10th, and I believe Watson went 11th. I could be wrong, or maybe 12th. But, I mean, two guys that are the elite young quarterbacks, elite young athletes at their position, which is quarterback, just slipping to the early 10s is just crazy. Another one they put up was the year that Josh Rosen got drafted. And we all remember, if you're a football fan, you remember Josh Rosen's speech. There were 9 guys drafted ahead of me, and those are 9 mistakes. And I honestly do feel bad for a guy like Josh Rosen because I don't think he's really on a fair shake. I mean, I honestly don't think he's a great quarterback, but he never got that fair opportunity. He comes into a sinking ship in Arizona with a shitty O-line, a team that the next year they're picking first overall and they're taking Kyler Murray, who is now their savior, but they also built more around Kyler Murray than they did Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen almost just felt like he was there to be there. And they end up getting rid of him. He goes to Miami. I believe he was on like New England's practice squad or like in New England's camp for a while. And then now he was on Tampa's practice squad and then was like a third string guy for the Niners. So I really do feel bad for a guy like Rosen because he's been through the ringer and it's just so brutal to see because he's never gotten a fair shake. Every place he goes, they're bringing either a younger guy or they already have a solidified number 1 starter. But the next pick after this, Miami takes Minkah Fitzpatrick. Granted, Minka's not there anymore. They were able to flip Minkah for a first rounder. But you really look at it now. Does Minkah for a first rounder to the Steelers really equal out? It doesn't feel like it, but I guess, don't know. I mean, at the time, it seems like a good trade, but Minka's just been balling out for the Steelers. But overall, I mean, the Dolphins got like 2 years out of Minkah Fitzpatrick, which is still better than any year with Josh Rosen. So the last one they posted was Sony Michel going 31st overall to the New England Patriots. And then Lamar Jackson going 32nd overall. And like, obviously this is a big miss. Lamar's been an MVP. Lamar has been an all-pro. But like at the time, Lamar, he did win the Heisman, but you didn't know how his game was really going to translate to the NFL. And I think that was a lot with, you don't know if he's going to get hurt in game because of all his mobility and what he's doing on the field. So that's definitely a tough one. But yeah, New England, I just don't think New England was ready to take a quarterback at that time. It just didn't feel like, and I think Sony Michel was a solid pick. Michel hasn't been awful, I mean, but he's definitely not been the back they wanted him to turn into. So those are a couple of my favorite just moments from draft day. I mean, there's always when the Vikings blundered their pick in 2003 and they missed their pick. 15 minutes in, they don't know who they're picking. The Jaguars move up and take Byron Leftwich, which is that's a whole debacle overall. There's ones that like I was just 2 when that happened, but there's ones that I was never alive for that I still find fascinating, like Elway refusing to or he was like threatened to go play baseball. And in that same draft, there was the record number of quarterbacks taken in the first round, I believe 6. And this year, a lot of people are predicting that could get tied. I mean, granted, I see 5 guys going in the first round in Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. But a lot of people say like Kellen Mond or Kyle Trask could sneak in like to Chicago or to a Washington or even to maybe like a Green Bay, which is insane to think about. But I mean, if any quarterback class that I've ever witnessed is going to tie it, It's this one with how deep they are. I mean, maybe Ian Book, maybe, probably not, but I'd love to see it. Um, but yeah, so those are just some. The draft always brings twists and turns. Like the best is the commissioner hug. Uh, Rogers all vaccinated up. He was making a big deal about it the other day that he's gonna be hugging people out there. The best is the Dontari Poe hug. I think that was a funny one just because they ended up like brushing noses to each other. It was like Roger Goodell and Dontari Poe were gonna make out, and it was just very odd overall. It's a super weird moment. Like he bear hugs him. He gets right in. They're saying a couple words to each other, but Poe's got his face buried into Goodell's shoulder, and then they like move their faces, like rotate them back to each other. Their noses brush by each other, and if you pause, it looks like a scene from maybe Romeo and Juliet from a love story or something. It's so odd, but it's hilarious. There's the Christian Wilkins one where he just bodied Goodell. Last year was weird though. Last year people sending in booze I felt was just so cheesy and corny. I mean, I'm glad they did something for it, but Goodell in his man cave was odd. Goodell is a weird dude. So seeing him just like try to be quote unquote normal guy sitting in his big recliner with his reading his card, just it was an odd moment. Very odd. But I'm happy that the draft is going to be guys are going to be in attendance. I think they announced the list actually. There was one guy on there that I think may go slip to the second round, which is actually unfortunate. Um, Hang on, I'm just looking this up. NFL draft attendees. It says 13 players will be in attendance. So Mac Jones is, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. Those three quarterbacks are. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are going to be staying home, which I'm actually not surprised Lawrence is. I would have actually thought Fields would have went. Receivers, the three best receivers in the draft, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle will all be in attendance in Cleveland. Kyle Pitts will be there. Rashawn Slater will be there. See, this is a tough one. These two guys actually. Christian Barmore and Gregory Rousseau do have the potential to slip to day two. And I'd hate for them to have to show up the next day and just like have to hang out on their own. That would be an overall bummer because I do love Barmore as a player. I watched him a good amount towards the end of the year. And I like Gregory Rousseau. So I'm hoping maybe the Vikings could trade up and if he does slip to day two, the Vikings could take him off the board early so he doesn't have to hang out in Cleveland much longer. To finish it up, Micah Parsons, like I've said before, who I think is a top 5 player in this whole draft. If I had to go, it would be Sewell as the number 1, I'd say. Kyle Pitts 2, Trevor Lawrence 3, Parsons 4, and then I'd go either Zach Wilson. There's like 3 guys. I'd go Wilson, Jamar Chase. Wilson, Jamar Chase, and probably Rashawn Slater as like the guys that I'd tie for maybe 5th. And then for DBs, Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain will be in attendance. So, I mean, it's good. The number 1 pick obviously won't be there, but the number 2 pick, Zach Wilson, will be. So it'll be cool to see him on stage, actually like dap up the commissioner and whatnot. But then outside of that, you don't know where everybody's going to go. I do have all these guys actually. No, I don't have Caleb Farley going in the first round, which is odd. I probably did mess my draft up not having him there, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I can't say it enough. The draft is just awesome. I love it, and I'm actually curious to see what post-draft free agency is going to look like because it's always very odd. You wonder what undrafted free agents are being brought onto a roster and what guys that are still available will get signed. Like Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher are still available. You could sign them to like a 1 or 2 year vet deal. Fisher, you could probably sign cheaper. Schwartz is a better player. Back injury, though, has him banged up. But yeah, that stinks that I'm sorry, that does not stink. But I'm excited for the draft, I should say. I misspoke. But yeah, I'm actually getting past the draft. I'm excited for this Wednesday. We have the episode with Phoenix Jack out, but JR and Trey Breezy, like I said at the beginning of the show, are dropping their song Red Solo Funk. And I've said it before when JR was dropping Get You Geeked and when he came on the show, we really got into it. His marketing scheme is unreal because the first video he releases for Red Solo Funk is like there's a beat kind of playing faintly in the background, and you don't know what it is, and there's a whole pyramid, like the whole setup for like you're playing beer pong, and you see a ball miss, and the very first cup just reads Red Solo Funk, and like you see two balls go over, I think, or maybe one, and then one sinks right in, and somebody just picks up the cup as the beat drops, and it was pretty cool. And then the next one he dropped was a cup spinning, and it spins so perfect that the Red Solo Funk faces outwards, and you're reading it. And that's actually when he put up the post of like, I have something big for you. Can you guess who the featured artist on this is gonna be? I was hoping it was gonna be a main guy, but I am excited that it is Trey Breezy. I listened to some of his stuff today, and then the post that they showed to release that it was Trey Breezy was JR is rocking a like I can just say it's a red velvet blazer with a black tie and a white shirt, and he's behind a beer pong table next to Trey Breezy, and Trey is in a black tuxedo with a red bow tie. So it seems like with this one, it's actually the color red is the big focal point for the marketing scheme and for the music. Unlike or like how in Get You Geeked, the color orange was the big one, and the apricots because of the meaning behind it. It was a very small meaning, like JR said on the pod. It was that apricots came in a video from him and his buddies goofing off in high school, and he decided like this would fit as a kind of a cool ad lib or a cool bridge in the song. So it's funny how little things like that really manifest them into bigger and better things. But outside of that, Kyle will actually, I'm going to talk to him. He should be making his return for our Friday co-hosting. And then strength coach Bruce will be on that episode. Coach Bruce is a great guy. He's been working with me since in high school. He was our high school strength and conditioning coach. He's working on his road to 500-pound deadlift. He's doing he explained to me it's like a Tough Mudder kind of race, but it's you're armed and you have to like wear a weighted vest, carry guns with you, and you shoot on a knee, and you're like out of breath. It's all about just composing yourself. It sounded awesome. So he was training for that a couple weeks ago. So it was great to talk to him about that. And then I was like, hey, let's get you on. I mean, and he was funny about it. He's saying, I'm not that interesting. Why would you want me to get me on? I'm like, no, it'll be fun to get you on the show and actually talk to you and hear your story, because he came to us. It was very interesting. I don't want to spoil it too much, but he came to us just kind of out of thin air at our high school. So, and before I leave, we're coming up on the end of April, which is crazy. Feels like I wrote these goals just a while ago. But so the April goals we had hit episode 65. I'm talking to you. Here we are, episode 65. We'll be hitting 67 to end the month. And by the end of June, episode 80 should be out. And we'll be hitting 100, I believe, by mid-July, which is an insane thing to think about. If you've listened to all these episodes, I really appreciate the love and support. It's just crazy to think that has all happened. That you guys have been here helping me out all this time and just sticking with me, rambling about the NFL draft or about Entourage with Brett, or hearing us talk UFC and wrestling and listening to when I did really bad interviews. I've gotten better at it. I'm not saying I'm some great interviewer, but I've definitely noticed I've gotten better, and the first couple were not great. So 65 we did hit. I had 455 by 3 for back squat as a goal. I did not hit that, but we're hoping for in June. I'm going to keep that one actually up there. I got 435. It was a struggle, or not a struggle. It moved good. I just didn't feel great after. Start second, possibly third college documentary. We didn't get around to that, but we've been busy, and we've got some other cool events, I think, that in the works that could be awesome if you're a true listener and a true fan of the show. We hit half of this goal here. Interview MC Lars and Ridge Lovett. Ridge came on. MC Lars did not. But you know what? Just because MC Lars did not come on the show doesn't mean we're going to stop trying to get him on. I mean, I love his music. I just started listening to him a while ago. He's got his own podcast, so I mean, maybe he'd want to come on and promote some of his music. But he works with a lot of the guys I like. He works with Spose, so I mean, but you guys know I'm a huge Spose fan, so a guy that works with him is always welcome on the show. And then the last one was Pass Upcoming Accounting Quiz, which I got a 70 on, a 70.9. There we go. That is passing. So I was fired up about that the other night. And then I actually had 2 songs of the month. It was I Know What You're Doing by Cam Groves. Great song. Check that out. And then Runaway You and I by Gelatinous, which is just an overall hype song. Like that's going to be possibly a summer anthem. It's just an overall great song. So yeah, like I said, I appreciate you guys always tuning in and listening to, like I said, me ramble. I mean, I don't know how good this really comes out. I'm not a huge fan of listening. I'll throw on like some of the interviews, but when it's just me talking, I do get a little nervous. I don't like repeating myself, and I like to maybe sound coherent at times. But thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned. The Phoenix Jack interview, strength coach Bruce interview, and then the week after Trey Breezy, and we're gonna actually work to get Burrito Mac back on the show because if the draft ends, he's the only Vikings fan I know. So I want to get him back on. See what do we want to do in free agents like after the draft? Are we happy with the draft? What is training camp going to look like? And did Rick Spielman get the job done? And will Mike Zimmer get the job done? So stay tuned for that. I'm going to reach back out to him. But yeah, thank you guys, and stay tuned for all the content we're going to be bringing to you.